Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Development and Management Committee. Let's start off, I'm sure we'd all need the introduction. Does any member have any declaration he or she wishes to declare? Fine, thank you. Could you please approve the minutes of the last meeting on the 11th of April? Yep. Would you have a seconder for that, please? Yes. Thank you. There's only one planning application, which is for the change of use to permit vehicle servicing and repairs to existing car sales on site former Geiger's Bradley Road East. We do have one speaker. I'll let you start off with that, please.
I got the application in for 2014, which was passed. The planning application what we required as car sales and repair. That's what I thought. In 2017, we built the unit, and I had the inspector come from council to inspect it. And when he passed the building and everything, and so that was all I needed to do. And I started selling and repairing my cars until 2023, when another planning officer visited my site, and he says, "Oh, you haven't got planning application for the repairs of the cars." And I said, "I thought when I put the application in, I was granted that." And he says, "Oh no, but there's a condition here, which is condition number 6, which you need to go to council again and get the consent for the renewal." I said, "Well, I didn't know that." So he says, "Okay, what do I ask you? What do I do next?" And he said, "Well, you can't repair the car, and you have to do this X amount of work before you can reopen." And we did all the work. You know, everything was properly done, and they inspected it as well, right? So now I'm thinking that when I was working there for 6 years, I had no complaints from the neighbors, no because of noise, nothing, because we worked from about 9:30, 10 o'clock till about 5:30, 6, no later than that, 5 days, right? And there was no issue for parking from my side. And also they said there's not so many cars parked outside, but they're all from the hospital staff. If you go after 5 o'clock, there won't be many cars. There's a lot of people park because they cross the side to go to hospital from my garage side. So there's no car that I park outside, and there's no much noise that I make for my neighbors, because none of them, in 5-6 years I've been working there, they approached me and said, "Oh, Mr. Hussain, you are disturbing us." Not even one. And this, I asked the officer, "How did you know?" He said, "Oh, somebody rang me up and they told me, oh, he hasn't got permission for repairs. And that's why I come." So that's when he explained it to me. So we carried out the work, and I would say that, because I can't really carry on my business without my repairs. Because if I buy the cars, where I do take them for repairs, I have to do repairing there as well. Then which I really need for my business to survive there. And as far as the neighbors concerned, I have not been any nuisance to any of them, and my cars are always been parked inside. They never been on the road, but our cars we did, because we got enough parking space for ourselves. So I would request to grant me that planning application for the repairs of the car.
That's fine. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Or?
No, I think that's it, because I got letter from my report from my agent this morning that, "Oh, you don't need a planning application for change of use because you already got the permission. You just need the variation of condition 6 to be removed." So they asked me to put, even though I rang up the planning then, when my agent started the new application, they say, "Oh no, you have to put new application in," which I did, which all cost and the time. Now they're just asking me the removal of condition 6. So I would request that if you can do that for me, please. Thank you very much.
Chairman, just to explain one thing, when planning permission was granted in 2012, it was for car sales and the erection of a garage. So, and then there was a 2014, I think you were the applicant then, Mr. Hussain, as well, to vary the conditions. So the condition has been known from the get-go. Chairman, because it's a garage, it doesn't need a change of use to a garage. The issue is that there is a condition on there which prevents it being used for repairing because of the relationship it has with its neighbours. So that's the issue. But whether it's called a change of use or a variation of condition, effectively the condition prevented repairs happening. So it is the issue for me is about the noise and the impact that those repairing vehicles could have on neighbours. Although I do take it from what Mr. Hussain said, he's operated without no noise complaints.
Because I worked there for 6 years, until somebody rang the council and they told them.
That's fine, thank you.
Chairman, just a procedural question first. Nothing against for us, but Lynn, could you just confirm that members are to participate once they've arrived late? Is that permissible?
Yeah, it's the last.
I've sat on some that you haven't been,
so
that's
there
all.
are certain ones.
So this one you can, thank you. I just didn't want an issue with the decision being made because of procedural problem there. So, I guess opening up the debate, when I first saw the papers come through last week, I think the first thing, like most members will do, I had a look on Google Earth and street maps to see the local area. I know Nelson, but I don't know the street names, and it hadn't been updated for a good 10 years or so. So it was a wasteland on Google Earth. I thought, oh my God, what's going on here? And then I went round to have a look at it, and I was pleasantly surprised compared to the street view. Very tidy area.
Yeah.
You've spent
No,
clearly.
no,
No, wait,
Yeah, councillors now.
I'm looking at you just to, it's much better than what it was 10 years ago on Street View, that's for sure. It was an absolute mess, and there's cars everywhere on the verge. So it's clear that Mr. Mahmood's, is that right? Spent a lot of money on the area, and it has improved the general view of it, in my opinion. When I approached it, I was pleasantly surprised, but that's having seen what I saw on Google Street Earth. So you've spent a lot of money there, and it is a positive for that type of location. A bit confused as to why it was a car sales area, because there's no passing traffic, but that's your issue there. Looking at the report, I couldn't for the life of me think why the Nelson Area Committee didn't want the noise report and assessment to be conducted. When I was parked in my car and had a little wander around, I didn't count the houses, but to the rear, on the other side, the back of those houses, I think it's Walton Street, there's between 8 and 12 residents live there, times 2 if there's a couple, times 3 if there's a kid as well. So I don't know, 30 odd residents backing onto the site. And it's the same on Bradley Street, east or west, whichever one it is. East, Bradley Roast East. Just a bit further up and across, there's another 10 or so houses there. So you're talking about 50 odd residents maybe that could be impacted by this. That was my initial assessment. And then there's the nursery next door, who have put in some complaints, albeit not valid in terms of planning guidelines. Parking is not an issue, but I thought it was entirely reasonable, looking at the report and studying the area, that a noise assessment should be conducted to tell us, or members of the council, the officers, whether or not it's a suitable site for the garages. Now, thinking about Pendle, I know that there's garages in Nelson, certainly, and in Colne, that do have residential properties straight across the road from them. I was a little bit conflicted, but then I thought, well, just because there's one doesn't mean we should do it again and again and again. So my thoughts were, and I thought it was entirely appropriate for some kind of noise assessment to be done before Mr. Mahmood was formally granted consent for the new, albeit you've been doing it a while, but for the conditions to be amended or removed, whichever it were. I'm stuck as in, he spent a lot of money on the area, it's a vast improvement from what it was, it looks a lot tidier, you've done a good job, the concrete hard standing that's in there, the fencing, it's very secure, it's a good presentation, in my opinion, when you approach the site. So there's a lot going on there, and council should be willing to support this man who spent a lot of his money improving that area. But the overriding factor for me is, if I'm sat in my garden, I'm not sure if any of those properties do have gardens, I didn't peek over, but if I'm sat having a cup of tea during the day, I just heard a brief discussion there, and I know when I walk past McAdams at Colne with my dogs, it's an absolute racket. There's air guns going on, it's all pneumatic tools, and it's very loud from a street perspective. That's without going into the building. And I'm thinking, if I'm having a brew out back, trying to get some sun, do I want that noise impacting me? I would say no, and I think everybody in the room would say I wouldn't want that going on. But then Mr. Mahmood potentially, I don't know, he might have insulated the garage, he might operate with the doors shut and put in some insulation around the fencing perhaps. These are options that I'm thinking that a noise assessment report might come back with and say, you know what, it could be approved, we'll ask Neil some questions in a minute, but the noise report might come back and say, you know what, at the minute it's too loud. If you knock it down 15 decibels with some sort of insulation facing the property around the perimeter, grow some hedges, something that dampens it, then we'll approve, you know, officers would approve it. And I just can't, for the life of me, think why that discussion. I'm not saying that didn't take place at Nelson area, I don't sit on it, but that seems entirely reasonable to do. Stood there, as when myself and Councillor O'Connor visited on the way here today, and when you sat in your car and having a wander around, you're thinking there's actually a lot of people, especially the kids next door. There's the creche and the nursery next door, and they have complained, and you're talking upwards of 90 to 100 decibels of sound potentially emanated from the building. And I know I'm saying that anecdotally, I'm not saying you're not telling the truth, but I've been working there 6 years doing this and I've not had any complaints. Well, I don't think we can make a decision on that because it's anecdotal evidence, not a report from a proper body that has done an assessment. So those were my comments, and looking at Neil now, there's been a new report that's come out today, or the revision. It mentions parking, but highways didn't in the original. What is that right? Or what's changed?
Highways did. Do you mean the original 2012 consent?
No, sorry, the one that I'm looking at that we were distributed in the post. So the highways comments were, I think, they're not bothered to. David just said them.
There's enough spaces within the sites.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
And they were happy, provided spaces were allocated for this purpose, because you're going to have a mixed use in there according to this of car sales and repairs, and I agree with that. There's enough space in there to cater for it. It's not a huge.
I thought so, looking at it. And then looking at the noise level then, so the report that we were distributed recently, not way back when, mentions that no sound, using my words, sound assessment wasn't conducted, so we can't really make a decision on whether it's going to impact residents or not. If committee was minded to perhaps, for example, delegate authority pending a noise assessment, is that an option? Is that viable for you?
We'd love nothing more than to have a noise assessment to actually do a proper analysis of, because the applicant may be the quietest mechanic in the world, but then you don't grant planning permission to individuals, you grant planning permission for the building. So the next one, Councillor Faraz may come along maybe the noisiest mechanic in the world, and you see the guns that they use on cars now, that's, you know, it can be noisy, you're banging around, but so a noise assessment will tell us what kind of insulation, whether they'll work with the doors shut, what kind of machinery they'll use, and you can limit it that way to make sure that there's no noise emanating that will disturb neighbours.
How may I continue? Yeah. Who bears the cost of that? Ballpark, we're talking thousands or hundreds?
No, 800.
Okay.
It's not thousands enough, but that's what I'm led to believe around.
And then that noise report would then come back with what I thought when I opened up with my comments. They might say, you know, if you grow a hedge along the boundary to dissipate some of the noise or put in some insulation, everybody's happy. Or it might just say, crack on, it's fine.
Yeah, what they will normally do, they normally measure the boundaries and say what the noise, and look at the distances between the noise receptors, look at the activities and the typical noise levels coming from that. I've done that with Health and Safety Executive, for example. They have typical noise levels in garages that you can look at. And then they say, right, in order to mitigate any impact on neighbours, you have to X and Y. And that's normally then conditioned into any planning approval. You shall abide by the requirements of your noise assessment.
Okay, so just thinking about options then. If committee were minded to delegate approval to your good self pending outcome of the noise report, if the noise report said it's fine, you would just say these are conditions, crack on.
Yep.
And if they said it's not okay, could it come back to the committee? Is there a mechanism where it could come back to the committee to this, instead of refusing it? I'm thinking the gentleman, gentleman's. I was impressed when I got there. I made that clear. I think the gentleman spent a lot of money there. He's obviously putting his life and soul into that area, and it's loads better than what it has on Google. I'm reticent for the outcome to be refusal without trying to help the guy comply with the rules. We shouldn't swerve the rules. EMV5 is important, and we shouldn't be making decisions without the proper information. So, is there a mechanism where we could say, look, let's delegate it? If it was down for refusal because there weren't any acceptable conditions, bring it back here, and we'll see what we can do. We can do that.
Through you, Chairman, you just delegate approval but not refusal.
Right, yeah.
So
And if it's approved, you can tell Mr Mahmood these are conditions, abide by them, and you've hunky-dory. I think that's entirely reasonable. I think for the residents, there's a lot of residents there, and the nursery in particular. Through you, Chair, could I, not wanting to cut anybody out, they can come in after me, but if I moved exactly what we say, delegate consent but not refusal, if it was down for refusal, bring it back here, I think that's reasonable and it's supportive of Mr Mahmood. So I'll move.
That's fine.
I'm a bit confused there. Delegate, could you believe, I don't seem to understand, you want to approve it? But
I'd love to approve it, but I want to see the noise report first.
Right, okay. Just based on that, obviously you've got some valid points there, but I think one of the things that we need to focus on is you're highlighting a lot of the issues based around the actual nursery itself, who actually have made the complaint. Have any residents made complaints in the area?
Yeah, there are residents as well, yeah.
Is that based on the noise?
So one letter of objection, that's from the nursery, not from the
Right, so one letter from the nursery. And obviously, Councillor McGladry, you're focusing yourself mainly on the residents as well, whose backyard, the coffee...
As I was stood there,
which is fine, yeah, but only a few doors away, further up is a nightclub. If you,
I don't know the area.
There's a few doors up there, there's a nightclub, there's a taxi base around the corner, there was also a Cleaver Group, which is a refrigeration company for meat, so it was a very busy street once upon a time. And obviously, Mr Mahmood, who's been running a car sales garage there, the garage was already there, so there was still minor repairs going on, is that correct? So there's always minor repairs going on, so I can't see what the difference is in that as well. And within a noise report as well, only recently, where the ambulance station was, we approved some garage works going on there, there's a tie bay there, and just across the road, down the road, there's a very famous Nelson tie bay, so it's a very busy road as it is in terms of motor vehicle trade. So I can't see what a noise report will really achieve from this, because we could say to Mr Mahmood, we need a noise report, and he could say, right, keep everything at a low volume and let's just give him a noise report. There's going to be no outcome from that, really, is there? Because he'll know what to use and what not to use in order to fulfill the outcome for his noise report. But on hindsight, if this already been running as it is, there hasn't been any major problem, there's a major improvement in the area, I can't see what seems to be the issue just to approve it.
I think sorry, Mayor.
No.
As far as
Go on, your person, bring Martin straight.
So I think my issue is we don't make decisions at committees based on anecdotal evidence, which is not saying Mr Mahmood's taking any fibs, but if everybody came to committee and said this is what's going on and we believed them, well, we'd be approving everything without any evidence. So I think when it comes to planning matters and officers' recommendations regarding professional opinion, those should come before clearly Mr Mahmood, lovely bloke, but he's going to be biased, as are some other people, members or residents or otherwise, employees of the business. I'm not saying that's the case. So I'm personally swayed towards professional opinion, not saying that Mr Mahmood's not telling the truth there. And I think that the officers of the report authors would know how much noise a garage makes and how to test it. So, sorry, Martin.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to explore a little bit some of the wording in the officer's report around this issue of public amenity. It notes that there have been representations from members of the public setting out that the operation already causes a nuisance. It furthermore says the Council's Environmental Health Officer has recommended that further evidence in the form of a noise assessment would be required to consider the impact. Elsewhere, it talks about a lack of evidence, a lack of consideration of the impact upon public amenity. So, if I could ask Chair through Mr. Watson, if the council were to approve this application tonight without having considered impact upon public amenity, could that decision be appealed, and might it potentially be argued that the council has made an unsafe decision by failing to have any evidence whatsoever around public amenity?
You, Chairman, the two forms of challenge for these things. One is a High Court challenge, judicial review. That is a possibility for you doing something which is unreasonable, and it's going to be unlawful, or the courts won't trammel on it. It's unlikely that will happen, to be honest, because it's so costly. For that, it does happen though. It's more likely to be maladministration. If you're making a decision and you have absolutely no idea what the noise levels are, which we don't, it's more likely to be an ombudsman case. And my view on this would be if any council makes a decision on any application without evidence that it should have, that's likely to be maladministration.
Which, and can I just explore what happens there? Presumably the council bears costs and also reputational damage, given that we are under a certain amount of scrutiny anyway in relation to planning decisions. Presumably none of that would be particularly helpful to the council.
Well, so when you think about the residents as well, this is after all about the residents, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't know the impacts on the residents, you know, it's one of the reasons I came into planning to try and help residents and make things better. We don't know the impacts. My view is it's rash decision making. We should know what those are, and to be able to make a sound judgment that benefits. Because at the end of the day, if there's too much noise, then you get a noise abatement notice served on you as a developer as well. So it protects the developer by saying, actually, we've done this properly, we know what the noise is, this is the issue, this is how we're going to deal with it, and you make a sound judgment.
So thank you. So for me, when I weigh the pros and cons, and we face a risk of maladministration or potential accusations of maladministration, failure to consider public amenity, to me that weighs more importantly, more heavily in terms of taking this forward. And I take Councillor Faraz's point, but I don't think that we can make an approval because there's a nightclub nearby. I mean, that's not a sound basis for making any decisions. So I would second Councillor McGladrey's proposal that we delegate, subject to a noise assessment.
So just to be clear, that was the delegate approval, but not refusal. Want to work with Mr. Mahmood, explore other options if the noise assessment said refuse.
Any other speakers?
No.
No, go on. Fine.
No, I think it's, you've got a good point, Martin. And you know, I'm just, you know, under the concern that I know we already did a noise assessment with the ambulance station as well, which I've just recollected now as well. So it does all valid value, but it's just curiosity for myself, because I'm part of the area committee as well, was when this nightclub did get set up, which is only a few doors away, it's around the corner, was there a noise assessment? And, you know, obviously that is in a residential area as well, so it just brings back to me, is like, if they've managed to get it, how have they not managed to get it, and so forth.
Four of those houses are the nightclubs next to my building, just like that. This is my unit and that's the nightclub. And they go on until 4 o'clock at night.
That's fine, thank you.
So,
Yeah, go on.
so that's the only reason why I just have that little issue there. And, you know, obviously I'm from the local area, even though it's not my ward. I'm very familiar with the area, and it doesn't look it, but I do a lot of walks around there as well. head towards Barrowford that way, and that's my shortcut towards Barrowford. And I've never seemed to have had any problems. And I know the owner of the old Cleaver Group building, and we've done some work there recently, about 6 months ago, and I couldn't assess anything. I know there was works going on within the, and you know, you take a nosy because it's a car sales garage, and I didn't really notice anything, so I can't really see it being much of a major issue. But obviously, if you already seconded it as well, we just need to go for the vote then, don't we?
Any other speakers before we go to the vote? Or you can say something else, sorry.
No, just to wrap up, you know, as far as his sentiments are perfectly legitimate. I just think that the comparisons to the other businesses aren't relevant to this planning application, albeit they are local. I think we should support the residents and at least get through the process. We're not saying no.
Yeah, you-
I think it's a fair point as well for us, but I mean, I think I'm also mindful that, as Neil pointed out, we are applying this condition to a building, not to Mr. Mahmood, who clearly has an excellent record and does everything right. The application applies to the building and all its subsequent owners. So for me, we have to act on that basis.
Let's take the vote then. Delegate grant consent, obviously subjected to the sound report. That was moved by Councillor Glaggery and seconded by Mortonstone. All those for?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's been subjected to delegate grant consent. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, no, it's not.